Hi, I'm Peanut from Kaiser Chiefs.
And I'm James from Soundgas.
And we're here today to talk to you about the Roland SH-101. But before we do that, let's talk a bit about me and you first, James.
Okay then, you first.
When did I get to know James?
Oh.
James is an expert synth repairer, tech advisor, overseer of the analogue synth world. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I paid you to say that.
Yeah.
That's good.
And you're
a good musician.
Yeah. I play
should be in a band.
I play keyboards in Kaiser Chiefs.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So part of my success, I've been lucky enough to be able to buy and collect lots of analogue synths. And not long into that journey, then I needed the services of someone like James to look after them, maintain them, and we've built a friendship over the years.
It's been what? When was it?
Well, over 15 years, probably 2005 or 6.
Yeah,
maybe?
probably. You were doing touring the second album still.
Second album, right? Okay. Yeah. So we've built up this relationship, and it brings us sort of up to the present here today. We are on this new project to talk to you about synths, and because I've acquired a fair few SH-101s in my time. I love them because when we'll get into that later, we'll talk about kind of what the synth is, how simple but kind of advanced but not complex it is.
Yeah.
And over time, they need the odd new part, things replacing, and that's where James comes in with many years of...
How old is this? Isn't it 30 years old?
No, it's more. 35, 1985 or something?
82.
Yeah, 82.
Oh, my maths is terrible.
Yeah, 82 is getting to nearly 40 years old.
It's 40 years old.
That's a lot. So these synths, but they're lovely synths, they're analogue synths, so they are kind of inherently repairable, aren't they?
Yeah, to some degree, yeah, they are now. Yeah. There was a period when maybe in the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s, but now there's lots of third-party parts and things, so they are definitely repairable.
Yeah,
they're not a machine you can throw away anymore. I'm sure lots got thrown away.
Yeah, I think lots probably did. I got traded in for the new digital counterpart, that sort of thing.
DX7.
So I guess I'll start by saying how I got into the 101, which was in a band pre-Kaiser Chiefs. Then our drummer Nick at the time had bought a grey SH-101 from Sound Control in Leeds. That was in the glass counter. Had been traded in. Must have been about 2002 or something. In our old band, I used to play a bit of guitar along with Whitey, but I play keyboards on some songs. And then when Kaiser Chiefs came around, it was here's a newer sound. Nick and Ricky was singing differently. Whitey played just guitar, I played just keyboards, and all of a sudden we found much more space in our sound. And because we were a new band, there wasn't, we had no success, then we didn't choose the 101, it was the only synth that we had. So you kind of had to get to know it.
So it was necessity over,
over desire, for sure, yeah. But it stayed like a stalwart of my setup, and it still goes on tour with me.
And you still use it to this day on albums, and it tours on every tour you've ever played.
It does.
What happens if you're in a country and you can't bring your 101 in? Are you sort of
that's never happened.
Right.
No, in the world. The only thing, if any touring musicians that we're talking to here, then you'll know that if you go do a gig outside your own country, you quite often hire things in, or the drummer will hire a drum kit in, and I will hire in keyboard stands, I'll hire in the MIDI controller for all the other setup, but I'll always take 2 101s with me. That's kind of my allowance on the freight.
All right, so I can
have 2 101s as a spare.
Right.
Because there isn't anything I could think of that would in any way take the place of this without be playing something like Everyday Love You Less and Less. I'm like, well, that just does not sound right. That isn't it.
See, that's interesting, because a lot of bands sometimes aren't bothered about that. If it doesn't sound right, it's fine, as long as they can do the song and get out of the studio really quickly. Whereas you prefer to have the real thing, because it's what is it? Because it's integral to the sound. It's part of it.
I think
part of the song. Sorry.
I think when we came along in late 2004 and 2005, then our sound clearly was like the dual vocals of Nick and Ricky. There's a certain guitar sound that White had, like the slapback thing going on, and the keyboards. All I had was a piano module, a little Korg 05 thing,
X5 maybe,
with a really wobbly jack socket. I had to be really careful to take down in soundcheck. And an XB2 Hammond, which gave it organ sounds. I used to turn the volume down to play MIDI piano,
I see.
and then turn the volume up and turn the piano volume down to. So that was early gigs, and the 101, and that was it.
Oh,
so so that sound, that definitely became part of our sound, and it's kind of never really left us. Whenever there's a little monosynth line to be done, or little beeps, or like an arpeggio thing, or some kind of like LFO
or a
thing
sweep
going on
of some kind.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm going to go to this first because I know it well.
So is this sort of like your main writing machine? You know, you sort of...
I'll always have it at a session. If we're doing writing, and obviously for touring, then it's there anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, for writing, I kind of... And you set up, a few keyboard racks or whatever, and some things going on. Like, if I don't put the 101 on top, I'm kind of like... I feel like I'm changing just for the sake of it, rather than like, well, it's just there. And nowadays, there's loads of great pedals and things you can put things through, so you can really mangle the sound, but there's something so beautifully simple about it that keeps giving you more inspiration. All the time.
I mean, it is a simple sound, but it's also, you can coax it into being more complex or more nuanced if you need to. And for the setup it is just, I think it's everything you need in a synth. I'd like it to have more things, but then it wouldn't be a 101 and it wouldn't sound the same.
That's exactly it.
And it would have cost more money. People who've used it, who've made it their own, wouldn't have bought one because it was too expensive. Can you remember how much Nick paid for this?
I think it's £300.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's all right.
It's not bad. Which is a lot of money when you're a band. You can barely afford rehearsals. It's like we probably sold a guitar or sold something else that we had and bought that.
So if that had been 500-ish, you probably wouldn't have...
Yeah, you would just glance past it. You're in sound control, and that's the kind of like, when that existed, that was like the great... place like the guitar shop, the drum shop.
Like
you go and talk to the guy every week. You ask the same price. How much is that thing? Well, it's not cheaper than you asked last week, But and you're hoping for a deal or some kind of sale after Christmas, and that's part of the wider thing that we're doing here at Patch as well. It's kind of like recreating the atmosphere of meeting people at music shops and all that kind of stuff. And so the happy accident of like just that 101, somebody traded it in against some Pro Tools system or whatever it was.
A Roland of some kind.
It might be some digital workstation or whatever that's now propping up a door.
Probably.
But it gained absolutely a new life with us. And we were, in 1982, whatever, I was like 4 years old. Wow. So I wouldn't be aware of a 101 at any point in the 80s. So I think part of the joy of owning them as well, and a case of vintage instruments is like, is giving them their second or third life.
Yeah, well, this has probably had more than that.
I mean, many more.
Like 303, it just keeps going and going, and then it'll dip.
Exactly.
And
you've no idea who's sold, who's one you might end up buying on eBay, or what you found in an advert somewhere. Or the dream finding at a car boot sale for a £5,
Never happened.
Which is a dream.
Yeah, I do have that dream still. It's terrible. But you won't find this one in a shop or a car boot sale.
You will not. You will not.
Do you want to just explain why this is very different to all the others?
Yeah, so Roland made a grey one, they made a red one, they made a blue one, and this is my custom white one, which was done by a good friend of ours, Jeff.
Custom Synth.
Synth, which... I don't modify things a lot, but at the time we were doing a tour. I think it was for Yours Truly Angry Mob for the second album, and we decided to make. I think we made the bass cabs all white, and the whole set was very white, And then Jeff just met. Said, well, I can do that. I said, well, how are you going to get the graphics back on the top? He's like, I can do that. And you're like, well, if you look at it here, he's done it. I'm like, I don't understand how you do that, but it's impressive.
Yeah, because there's a mod grip for this as well.
There is.
And you've played it remotely because it's battery powered, so you've been mic'd up and done.
I did do it at Wembley Arena.
Yeah,
maybe?
I saw that one. Yeah.
I didn't tell any of the band, and for the song Modern Way, which this synth is on that song for all the little beeps in the verses and things, I ran off stage, and then my Rod, my tech, he gave it with a white leather strap. There was a white cape supplied as well, but I decided to decline the cape. And then we had a ramp on that stage set, so I went up to the back of the ramp and then walked down the steps between the drums and the keyboards, much to Whitey was creased double laughing.
Yeah, you had to do it again, didn't you?
Yeah, I think he actually messed up the song. We started it again. Yeah. So, anyway, we digress a bit there. But this is the wonderful world of the 101.
Have you ever won a Brit Award?
Yes, 3.
Oh, Just 3?
Just 3.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe that's the joint record. I think we'd take that and Oasis.
Oh, bless them.
I think. So lucky them to be in the same.
So has
company.
anybody got 4? Somebody must have got 4.
I don't think so. I think in any year, I think the most one, I think is 3.
It's 3. So do you remember what the categories were?
I think I should say that one of the categories doesn't exist anymore, but I think that still counts because at the time we were in that category. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Which
think that's the
category was
close. I can't remember. Best rock act or something.
Okay.
I can't remember. I think we got best live act.
Yep.
I don't know.
Best rock act.
I think best rock act and
best band with analog synthesizers.
Yeah, maybe best band with a keyboard player.
You beat Orbital and Chemical Brothers, didn't you?
I think so. Yeah. I remember. I think we beat Gorillaz. Didn't we beat Gorillaz?
Yeah, I don't think Damon's ever got over it.
No. I think what's his name? Jamie
Hewlett.
Yeah. I think he walked past one was ago. It was like, "That's my award."
Oh,
something like that.
Did you ever make it up with him?
It's all fine. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
And how many golds, platinums, silvers?
I don't know. I think employment is getting near 2 million.
Wow.
So I'd be like, we've got a 6 times platinum disc for that.
Almighty.
But the 7 one must be. It's almost at the manufacturers. You know, they're almost ready to print it, but I don't think it needs a few more just sales just to tick over the edge.
Yeah, that's crazy, and that's physical sales, which is given what's happened in the last 10 years is incredible.
It's a strange thing in the industry to, I guess, to kind of be present throughout a change. Rather, artists emerging now. Well, this is the market they're emerging into and the world that they're emerging into. But having been in a different sort of market, it's really strange to think. The record labels all spending the same amount of money, they're all doing these things, but like, well, where's your money? Where's the money coming back from? Like, no one's buying CDs. I mean, vinyl, thankfully, is on a bit of a comeback, which is nice.
So, the first album? It must have been released on vinyl and CD.
Yeah, vinyl CD, and even
cassette.
I've got a cassette from India.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's probably worth money. That is.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So, are you reissuing it? Has it been reissued on vinyl?
Yeah, do you know what? I think we did do some reissues of vinyls because the demand was going up for them. Then we actually decided to repress, I think, the first 2 albums. The first 2 records on vinyl, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. It is really basic. It is just one single oscillator with a mixer, which is kind of unusual for mono synths of that period. I think you used to just get a selection switch of one waveform at a time.
Right, yeah.
So you could be a bit more, nuanced in the sound if you had certain settings. And I think the SH-101 saving grace is definitely the sub-oscillator.
Yeah.
Which makes a massive difference.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of... shall I play something anyway, just to show what it sounds like, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can hear the sub is really low there, which sometimes gets a bit muddy.
Yeah.
It muddies things up a bit, but you can switch the sub...
Oh, you can
like an octave, 3 octaves down, which is crazy. So that sort of sound. So finding like that's my default sound I would have on it. Like in the early gigs, I used to have a piece of tape across here with all the settings. And I know now. And when there's a certain song, Angry Mob, where I've got about 5 seconds to change the settings, and I can do it almost in the dark, and then get it just about right, and then tweak it as I go along. But that sort of sound would be something that I'd play like every day, Love You Less and Less from the first record. Yep. So it's like, which is nice. So that it's straight away, see that release is a bit long. You can hear the end of it, so I liked it to be punchy.
So,
and so it's very because you can sequence that and it wouldn't sound right.
Could you? Well, I was going to ask actually. Did you play it live for the record?
Yeah. So that's live. Yeah.
So if you sequence that up again,
so it'd be. Right, here we go. See what's. I don't know if I was set. It might be crazy fast. Let's see. Looking at the light, can I get it right?
Dance remix. A little bit faster. So that's got very different.
I put an extra note in.
Oh well, that's why it's different. No, that's right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the extra one there. But
even that sounds different.
Yeah, it's not the same as
if you
like.
Play that.
So it's the shortness. There's the shortness of the thing, whereas because it's to do with the gates.
That's just taking a full length of a
sequence. Yeah,
clip.
And once the drums come in, then you really have like a groove going to it, and you play into the bass. It's really locked in between me and Simon.
I was going to say, didn't Nick choke the cymbals as well?
Yeah, like little
so you
stabs
could-
and things. Yeah. So he start the song with the hi hats tapping
Yeah.
away, because otherwise live it's a little bit exposed down there.
What
Yeah,
tempo are we?
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because it's. I mean, I used to use mine with sequences quite a lot, and I used to clock it from a TR-707, but you know, I can't play, so that's why I do that. But it's interesting,
which is
very
nice.
different.
But you know that locking in things,
Yeah.
especially drum machines and maybe two synths, one playing like a bassy thing and then the other playing a melody.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you kind of like you can have three things here. And you're like,
Yeah.
I've got a track, I've
mean,
got a sound, but it's not the same. So what I find is like this is geared towards that world that you're describing, but I didn't use it that way at all. I
Right.
just used it like another voice.
So, because you didn't have a manual for yours, how did you work out what it does?
Yeah, I think I found on the internet version 1 of the internet a long time ago. Like there was some patch called it's called Orbital, which wasn't like a basic pulse like that. I can't remember what it was for, and we tried to find it. I couldn't locate.
Yeah.
I've definitely got a JPEG somewhere of this screenshot,
patch.
which was just it gave you a starting point to get, because it's very easy to like not know what all these things mean, and mod and pulse width and what they all mean, and what the mod means on there, and you have a bit of that on there, and all of a sudden you got that, and you're like, well, what? That's not really that useful, you know?
Yeah, but that's not useful. But that might be.
Yeah, maybe.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
It's all-
But when you if you imagine you come to it, someone's just pushed all the sliders up to full. You're like, I'm not really sure what to do. But the beauty of the 101 is it's quite simple in sections, so you can see what's going on. And you can almost like, right, I want to change that. Okay, so that's that thing there. I want to change the rate, make it higher octaves. It's a bit bassy, but I want to keep in that octave, but I don't want it as bassy sounding. Sub-oscillator sounds like a sub. If you know a little bit about music, obviously, if you know nothing at all about it, you could look at this and be like, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
If you have a basic idea of kind of frequencies and things, and once you've kind of played with a synth once, and worked out what the
what the settings are
what
doing or
what
the
that
effect
does,
is.
you're like, oh, that's what hearing records,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
start getting resonance, and you're like, that's that, yeah.
Yeah.
As
Because
soon as you've got that, you're like, now I can make this do that automatically and go like this and make it slow.
yeah, so it's a sort of discovery of
Yeah.
features, and I mean, did you sort
And all
of
of a
stumble
sudden,
across?
it's like I've heard that on record.
Yeah,
I've
did
heard
you
things
stumble across
going,
sounds like that? It's like, oh, I know that.
Yeah, and quite often it is the case when it's been in like the gig bag or something. It's been in the car, and all the
just got
slides
knocked.
have faded, and you've turned it on, and you've hit it by accident. You're like,
like-
don't touch it. That's
Yeah,
great. I don't know what I've done, but that's great. And over 15 years, you
That's
start to
become your
actually,
sound.
it actually becomes sort of knowledge that it's like,
Because
that's how you do this.
Is that the story of Gary Newman when he first met the Minimoog, and it was just that was the sound it had, and that's how he used it. And
How
it's like,
fortunate for us all. Yeah.
good for us, and good for you as well. So
Yeah.
there's always those weird serendipitous moments where it will tell you what it wants to make.
Yeah. And so the things, I mean, like
going
single
back to
oscillator, basic control of the filter, a nice envelope. That's it's only a single envelope. Again, when you got synths with dual envelopes, it's like
It's
that can be
nice.
that can be a bit daunting at first.
Yeah, but you don't need it.
I know, and I guess when you start thinking in synth terms, you're like, well, actually, I'd like a second envelope to do that. That's when you go and buy the
bigger
synth,
synth,
isn't it?
or get two SH-101s.
Start pairing
Which is
things
what I
up.
wanted.
Yeah, but so stuff like, particularly when you can get little boxes, which maybe we'll get into that later, which will give you like a clock input.
Yeah.
So this
You can
LFO
free
will
the
go a
LFO
certain
up,
thing.
yeah.
So you start to have just nice, simple things like, which is like
just like
textures in a song,
pulses,
pulses, so you can, like that sort of thing, yeah?
Yeah, because the LFO, without anything in the back, is the clock rate for the sequencer and the arpeggio.
But you can see immediately how useful that is in a song, you know?
I mean, there's loads of tracks.
You slow it down and start to have more,
Yeah.
you know? You can imagine like, having a drum machine with that, and it's got a very simple arpeggio.
Well, you could just do that as well.
Yeah.
Let go.
Yeah.
I
know that.
Should do it for you. You
Yeah.
can you can have a cup of tea.
But yeah, you can.
But,
So,
sorry.
but then if you go for like an arpeggio thing,
Yeah.
it's start to,
Yeah.
so, and with the hold on there as well, it's quite useful. You can start playing the piano or something, or just some drums, and it becomes nice.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
it's a very simple way to get into that sort of
It
world.
was a really interesting feature when I found that on the 101 because I didn't know what an arpeggiator was. But as soon as I played it, I recognised it straight away because sort of late 80s, early 90s, a lot of people were buying analogue stuff and using old synths, and some of them had arpeggiators on.
Yeah.
But from maybe the mid 80s to the early mid 90s,
Yeah,
no arpeggiators on anything. It was like, oh, okay. So yeah, little things like that are really useful and fun for.
Yeah, and you
getting
can imagine
ideas.
putting that through like a little bit of a drive pedal or something, or particularly delays and reverbs.
Yeah.
Especially a delay that's timed in with it.
Yeah, with like a tap delay.
It starts to become a whole different world of textures. And, and I've used this on a few things where I've done just that, where it's really deep underneath the track, but it's not like we don't want the real bass on there. Simon's playing the real bass.
But it just drives.
But it's like, is there something else we can put in? It maybe even really like a really low sub that you might do artificially with some sort of EQ, or try and use some plugin to sort of duplicate the bass and make it something. And actually, if you can think of the part on here and do it properly,
it sounds
then
really good.
It sits in the mix. We were talking about this earlier on. It sits in the mix straight away. There's no kind of like, well, it doesn't quite fit there. It's like it's got its own identity, and even at low levels, it's fighting to get itself in the mix. And goes, I'll work with you. I'll sit there, and I'll get there.
Something I've always found about older analogues is they do sit in the mix really well, whereas the sort of the boutique series and the clones and other things that are sort of digital, they fight for space, whereas these will, like I say, just melt into a track.
Yeah, I think so.
It's much more easier to build up layers and textures.
Yeah, I guess should we talk about some more of the things? I mean, you got like the. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to skip over a lot of this stuff. It's not. This is not meant to be a YouTube instructional video per se.
Go watch YouTube for that.
Yeah, this is more kind of like my experience with the synth and kind of what the things with that we found.
It's so
that we
basic.
like.
You don't really need to talk about it, but you probably should.
But you get the stuff when you get the stuff. I mean, now this is like the pressure on camera. I'm trying to remember what I was doing this morning. I was testing them out to make sure these worked, and then you find some really nice. I think I had the gate. Yeah, when the attack goes funny. Yeah, straight away you get rhythms. And then see, even that is just straight away. Even just getting rid of like the soul, That to me is like typical 101 sound.
Yeah.
That's
interesting.
Especially when you take the sub lower.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because the 101 has a sound.
Yeah.
And a lot of analog synths from that period, they all had sounds. They all had their own character, which sort of disappeared for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Then they get the pulse width, which is a lovely, it's a simple thing straight away.
Just to get a bit more
and
richness.
You kind of like, it just sounds nice, I'm trying to remember what.
I mean, out of context, it does sound like a drone pulse, but in a track with some, I don't know, with more beats, it makes the whole track sort of pulse.
Stuff like that, short, so it all of a sudden becomes asymmetrical,
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is nice, I think it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you start to have that with, with a thingy.
Oh yeah, I have an arpeggiator.
Oh, didn't press hold, did I?
You took it off. I suppose now that you've got the arpeggiator running, you can go through the sliders, instantly hear what the difference is in the sound.
Yeah, it's quite useful then too.
Yeah, just to, oh, that sounds good.
So really small changes to the envelope can really make a nice difference.
Yeah, the envelopes on 101s have always been really nice. They're very snappy and lovely.
And if you had the clock doing this, you could then free up the LFO to make the filter do some crazy slow sweep. Like, so it becomes like a 30-second loop almost, where it's not quite the same.
I'm going to chat very quickly about the technology of this because it is kind of for Roland, this was kind of a breakthrough in some respects because it was the start of their cheaper synths. So they'd had,
It was 1982, right?
82, yeah. So they'd had the Jupiter 8 the year before. They'd had the Jupiter 4 a couple of years, 2 or 3 years before that. They'd had the SH series going already, so there was
the 1000 and stuff.
Yeah, the 1000, 2000, the 1, the 3, 3A, 5, 7. Am I missing anyone? SH1, the 09, the 2.
Right.
But they were all really traditional analog synths.
And it had it was like the sci-fi. It was like the 70s sci-fi graphics, which were like on the System 100 stuff.
Exactly.
Which I really like that look.
I do, yeah.
But I see that as like a separate chapter of Roland. And then this was like the next one.
This is 80s. I mean, grey plastic, it's like, oh yeah, that's going to be cheap. And it was really cheap. It was about under $250 or something like that in the UK, which would have been affordable, very affordable. So a lot of people bought them and probably realised they didn't want to be musicians anymore and bought guitars. So yeah, and that's one of the reasons why maybe they're still around, because they were really cheap. And they found their way into people's hands. Who bought them second hand for 90 quid or whatever.
Yeah, you hear lots of people going, "Oh, I sold my this, I sold for 30 quid, I swapped it for this."
Should have kept it. Yeah. But the interesting thing is it's got a microcontroller which they only really left to things like the Jupiter 4, and the Jupiter 8 had a microprocessor, so it was proper digital computery stuff. Whereas this has got a controller which you think, well, it doesn't need it, because it's just a basic LFO oscillator filter VCA.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it scans the keyboard and it runs the arpeggiator and the sequencer, which adds a sound on it. But also it's the first time I think Roland used somebody else's parts, i.e. all their oscillators up to press had been their own design. Nothing special, but this is a Curtis 3340.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, they sound like Curtis 3340s. They're just that's what they sound like.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of quality in the harmonics. They are what they are. They're very good. They're very stable.
It seems like run of the mill, but I guess combined with the nice sounding filter, it can make a simple, like easily available, cheaply replaceable oscillator sound good because of like the envelopes and the filter.
And it was more stable than their designs.
Yeah.
And the filter actually is based on the Jupiter 8, Jupiter 8 Juno 660 filter chip they designed. So that's why it's got that sort of 80s Roland sound.
Yeah, it definitely sits in the sort of the Roland palette, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say what you said about it. It makes it like sort of reliable and solid, which is one of the reasons we were talking before about. I still take these on tour because, touch wood, please. Then they don't go wrong that often. Occasionally they do, or a key might break. You can replace a key. I
think the most problems you've had with these synths have been power supply related.
The power button issue, which is a classic.
Yeah, I mean that's how I met you, because I think it was this one. Jeff had sent it to me to calibrate for you.
Okay.
And I'd sent it down, and you were in production rehearsals in Exeter.
Yeah.
And Roger, your tech, got hold of it, and he was on the blower saying they're all out of tune. It's like, can't be. Anyway,
this is day before the talk starts, right?
Yeah.
A day off, was it? Yeah. It was not.
Yeah, it might have been the day before.
It was tight, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Because you had to set up. The first day was setting up the stage and all that. But so basically Roger wasn't happy, and it's like, oh god. And it turned out power supplies were the issue.
Right.
So ever since then, I think you've always used Roland or a really good quality analog supply.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
can't be understated. That kind of really like using the proper and a decent regulated power supply.
Yeah. But you've had very few mishaps on stage.
Yeah, very few. We've had it stays in tune. It gets rattled around the back of a truck for hundreds of miles at a time.
Or a plane.
Plane gets thrown around by customs, all that kind of thing. And even the one thing, and I guess the thing is, like, as a starting off synth, this is the first synth I took the back off. With fear and trepidation.
It's my first one as well.
With your number on speed dial, just in case I keep changing it. And it was when we were in, I think we were playing Austin City Limits in Texas. And it was 100. We were outdoors, uncovered stage. Right. It was like 100. I might be in Coachella. I don't know, but it was 107 degrees. I think was the temperature measured. And basically the tune was out. You couldn't tune it. It was still flat when I had it on full sharp. I was like, oh god, what's wrong? And you turn the back off, and it's just like a big blue. I think it says VCO trim or something.
VCO,
so you're like, well,
tune.
I'll try that one first. And you did it, and we sort of holding it upright on the table like this, and sort of holding it with the screwdriver at the back with the tuner on, going. Oh yeah, and holding a note and going, you can get it back in tune.
Good.
And it's kind of that is about the extent of how bad they go. Occasionally, I've had like subs died or
sliders got crackling.
Or maybe occasionally the oscillator's gone, like one or two ever.
Oh yeah, but that's But those chips die, from time to time. That's just normal.
You've got
I mean they got reissued, so that's a good thing. I mean they haven't reissued the microprocessor exactly, but there are workarounds with the Tubby Tech, and there was another guy doing other processes. It's ultimately definitely repairable, and this is going to be around a lot longer than probably me. So.
So James, thank you for joining me into this journey along the 101 highway.
Oh, we've only just started though.
Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah, we've talked a lot. We had like a list of things to talk about. Didn't quite get to it all, but we'll be back for more. So stay tuned to the Patch Instagram and social channels.